Hi guys, my name is Jody Williams, founder of Y Performance. Thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. Feel free to ask any questions related to this video or any other question that you might have, and we'll be sure to answer. Enjoy the video.
Disciplinary teams, we sometimes overlap. We sometimes overlap into each other's spaces, right? And that causes a bit of friction, if I can put it like that, Jody. And that is what has drawn me to the studies of interdisciplinary teams. And what the study proposed was basically that it proposed an interdisciplinary model, and the model positions what multidisciplinary teams lack, and that they position governance and leadership basically as the alignment to the foundation of performance and support and interdisciplinary collaboration, and also having athlete development systems, And we tried from a organizational level that to cover 5 things, and what the first thing was, like, the question that I asked was, what makes a good team? And we've realized that a good team, there's 10 principles that came up from it. And number 1 is the most important, is leadership and management, communication. As number 2, because without effective communication, we can't really move forward from or make decisions, right? So we need strong communication for that. And then 3 is your personal rewards in training and development, continuous learning, professional development, career progression, opportunities, which is what we quite see in on the institutional level. It's quite limited, at certain institutions. Number 4 is appropriate resources and procedures. You can have the knowledge, but without the appropriate resources, it becomes a struggle. Number 5 was an appropriate skill mix, which means a skill mix is cross-pollinating into each other's spaces, but understanding each other's roles, right? But coming together as one team and having a athlete-centered mindset. And that's something that for the past 10 or 15 years that we've experienced, that it simply doesn't, there's alignment, but there's also not alignment in terms of that. So, appropriate skill mix and understanding of where we want to go to in terms of an organizational space. And then number 6 that we found was a supportive team climate, right? I just spoke about it. We have to have trust and mutual respect for each other, and valuing our contributions, and that's also something that we've been struggling with, and a lot of not myself where I'm currently now, but as a practitioner all over the years, we've managed to get it right, at the right time. What also stood out for me was number 7 was the individual characteristics. It's your team members should possess the knowledge and experience, also take initiative, and self-awareness, be able to listen. So, and then also reflective practice abilities, holding yourself accountable to an area of where you are responsible for, and be able to say, hey, I'm vulnerable here, I need to reach out to my physio or my bio to assist me with this. And number 8 was basically clarity of vision. And so I think, and most successful teams, they operate with a clear set of values and shared vision, which guides services, right? And services delivery and strategic direction. And I think without the vision, you just pitch up, and there's nothing to hold on to. You just basically operate. And I think a clarity of vision is very important for us. And then Number 9 is quality and outcomes of care, right? So we should always focus on having athlete-centered, client-centered outcomes, keep your ego out of it, measure effectiveness, seek feedback, and continuously improve service quality. I think with that, you've already won so many things in terms of where you move forward. And the last one is respecting and understanding your roles, right? I think, again, because we cross-pollinate into each other's space so much, it's we sometimes question what the next person is doing, but you have to trust your colleague. You have to trust the person or the expert that was there. It's okay to challenge, but you need to be able to trust your team. So effective interdisciplinary team balances autonomy, and with collaboration, they understand each other's role, and each member's role, and respect for the professional expertise. So while working interdisciplinary, and what's interesting for me is that how that translates into a high-performance sport environment is that, in principle, if you look at the leadership, right, it's clear direction from your HP manager or your director that you have, Again, I mentioned communication, which is quite, with regular meetings and multidisciplinary meetings and shared athlete management systems, and, and that's important for an effective team. And development, when you look at moving forward, because we come in with a set of rules, right, from the benches, from the school benches, or your university benches, right into a job, and you've learned so much, but you actually haven't learned how the real world works. And there's shortcuts to applications, Not that I'm saying shortcuts are good, but with experience comes certain things that you can have instead of waiting for a physio to start assessment. You start with your rehabilitation as your S&C, in the sense of there's other ways you start building mobility, also dependent on the injury. But this is just an example that I'm making. So, and then your development, your resources, access to resources does help, testing, technology, your rehab spaces, your data system, sharing of data, and not delaying data, not gatekeeping data to the next person, or want to keep it to yourself because you want to be in control of the patient or the athlete. That restricts or limits the next person or the next practitioner, and it delays the return of athletes. Our skills mix, integrating our S&Cs, physiotherapies, sports medicine, nutrition, psychology, performance analysis. These are all parties that needs to be involved through all the processes of planning and working together, whether it's injury related or performance related. Everybody needs to, in the team, needs to hold each other accountable to the vision of the organization or the team. And trust and for the team climate, like your trust and psychological safety within the multidisciplinary team is very important, because if you look at while I was studying or writing my thesis, I came upon the 5 dysfunctional teams, right? I think it's that the 5 functions or the of a dysfunctional team, or the 5 characteristics of a dysfunctional team. And this has also been part of the study, and how we can, and trust was one of the biggest things, that if there's no trust, the next person is not going to share certain things, and because, again, without psychological safety, the person cannot express, or the people won't be able to express how they really feel, I call it, and then they struggle with, because we all face a scarcity mindset, or sometimes we don't even realize the scarcity mindset. When I say scarcity mindset, the fear of losing, and we need to create a safe space for our teams. When we look at individual characteristics as well in terms of translating to a high-performance sport, competent practitioners are not just competent practitioners, but people that's right for your environment, that's willing to collaborate, and that's athlete-centered is quite important. And what I've realized is that if you have a talented person that doesn't know how to collaborate, well, you as your manager, you need to upskill that person to be able to, but also you need to create that safe space first. If there's no safety, you will lose their talent because they will always be in survival mode. And it's a dog eats dog type of mindset does not work for a high performance environment. It is, like I said, and I've repeated myself, like collaborative effort is key for having an interdisciplinary team and facing and being successful at the end of the day, because it is the vision of the organization and not the vision of the person itself. So shared performance philosophy, coming back to the vision. So shared performance philosophy and aligned to organizational theory, right, or strategy. We have a strategy and we are currently working towards it, and obviously I'm not allowed to elaborate about it or of it. But what's important for us is that alignment is very important, right? You have to share. You can't hold someone accountable if you don't share what you really want to achieve. And sometimes we struggle with that, or we just give it, but we don't revert back to that or keep the person accountable to that, hold them accountable to what was agreed upon, Then what's important as well is the quality of and outcomes. Again, with your vision, with your organizational strategy, there need to be your athlete KPI tracking, your injury rates and return to play success, performance outcomes, etc. And then the last part is your role clarity in terms of defined responsibilities in decision making and authority across the disciplines. And what we really struggle is that sometimes the organization, especially in a university environment in itself, and the reason why I'm focusing on that, because my study was on the university environment and not a professional organization, because professional organizations have learned that long ago that what is currently happening at an university level, they've already experienced that 10 or 15 years ago. And that information obviously won't be shared with the general public. But at the end of the day is that it's important you can have the best coaching staff, right? But if there's no alignment to the organizational vision, or you can have the best staff, you can have the best resources, your best sports scientist, the number one coach, but in the world, for example. But if there's no organizational alignment to all the practitioners, it does create the possibility of dysfunction, right? And with the interdisciplinary system, or the interdisciplinary model that we studied, there was 5 strategic objectives that underpinned the framework of interdisciplinary, right? And I'll take you guys through it, and I'll give you the key takeaway from the thesis, and then once it's published, you guys can read it. But I think you'll find great information, something that's been ignored for a very long time. But again, the 5 strategic objectives that underpinned the framework was strengthen the leadership alignment through clear governance and accountability structures, right? And then improve multidisciplinary decision-making through structured processes and psychological safety. Number 3 was optimize athlete development through long-term athlete pathways, athlete development pathways, and individual development plans. Number 4 was implement evidence-informed monitoring systems, right? Workload, wellness, recovery, things that we've already done, but actually make sense of that data. Because what I've realized and what I've experienced lately was that we track and monitor and we have all that data, but a lot of practitioners don't know how to make sense of that data, or they're too scared to communicate that data to the staff or to the coaches and things like that. And again, that's where psychological safety comes in, right? Or organization, because working in silos actually, what it does is it delays inconsistent decision making. It creates fragmented a governance or a organization where fragmented information it falls through the cracks, right? And then also reduce learning and collaboration capacity, because we don't want to learn from each other because we're so dysfunctional. And when I say we, I mean in general. We're so dysfunctional, we don't even realize we're dysfunctional, and we want to really bring it together and actually just get the best out of the athlete because we only have that athlete for 3 to 4 years, but we're sitting with the next Olympian, we're sitting with the next Springbok, Blitzbok, Bafana player, whatever it is, netball star. But if we're dysfunctional, we won't be able to draw out that athlete's full potential while that person is with us. We'll only see them performing after they've left our system, for example. Away from the thesis was that high performance success is not primarily a function of having highly qualified practitioners, right? It is creating organizational systems that enable those practitioners to work together. And then effectively, multidisciplinary teams becomes performance multipliers. And then when being supported by strong governance, clear decision-making structures, integrated monitoring systems, and a culture of communication, trust, and shared accountability. It just makes your job as a practitioner so much easier, because when you're aligned, you can go ahead, you can plan, you can hold, and it's not probably a favorable thing currently, but you can hold your coach accountable, your coach can hold you accountable, you can hold your physio accountable, and obviously because my portfolio that I'm currently in is that I'm allowed to hold people accountable, and people are allowed to hold me accountable. And
in the 2 years from the Commonwealth Games to the Olympics, and I was very fortunate in that environment to work with a really, really good sports scientist, Dr. Wayne Lombard. He's currently all over the world, actually. He's prior to working with the SA Ladies, he worked with the Indian national hockey team, but he's also worked in China, and then also with individual athletes. And I think I learned a lot there, which I brought back to my day job at UWC, where I managed the hockey program and also coached one of the ladies' teams. And I think I do want to talk about, and it picks up on some of the things you said earlier, Jody, and some of the things Keenan alluded to as well. I think what I really learned, what a big takeaway for me was from the national setup, was building a culture of high performance, and how to do that effectively, and how important it is, as you mentioned, Keenan, that all the role players are on board, and everyone understands what the big target is, or what the big goal is that we're working towards. And in our case, it was we were working towards an Olympic Games with a national team, which is a pretty big goal to be working towards. But we knew that the coach had a very clear vision. There was a good working relationship between the coach and the sports scientist. And then I think it's very interesting to mention the rest of the staff, so the assistant coaches and trainers and the biokineticists we worked with, the team doctor, myself as the team manager. When we were making plans and when we were looking at the 2-year, the build up to the Olympics, we all would come together and talk about how we would be able to put things in place. What is the training schedule going to look like? When are we going to camp? How are we going to do that? When are we going to travel overseas? And how do we do that? And even it's not a little thing, but the things that I was responsible for in terms of being a team manager, the logistics and the booking of flights and how we fly, for example, how we travel, how that might impact performance and having the kind of working relationship that we did really opened my eyes to things like, okay, can we fly the morning so that we can still have an afternoon training session? Or can we, making sure that those little details are in place. And I think that was a huge takeaway for me, that to be really, really detail-oriented is very important. And when I was then putting together or trying to take a code, when I started at UWC, hockey wasn't a high-performance code, and I was saying, but we have the potential to be, so how do I work towards that? One of the first things that I tried to put in place was looking at what is the vision. So where do we want to be in 5 years' time as UWC hockey, or in 10 years' time as UWC hockey? And how do we create a high-performance culture? Because high performance is so much more than extra gym time. It's really looking at all of the different elements. How do we teach athletes or student athletes, in my case, how they should be eating when they live off 2-minute noodles for the week? How do we teach them the importance of good sleep? How do we teach them to balance everything with their academics as well? So high performance becomes so much more than just tracking GPS data or looking at test results. And it's actually a mindset and a culture that one needs to cultivate. And in my case, I was very fortunate that I had Jody as a very young, enthusiastic, honest student who was paired up with my code, and we worked very well collaboratively together. I think one of the things also that really helped was the fact that the coaches that we had employed were actually sports science graduates as well as coaches. They were sports science graduates, and so they understood the importance of the testing and having a proper program in place, player loading, all of these sort of basic sports science elements. And that really helped because they bought into the concept of the importance of sports science within the code and to grow the code and the performance. And I'll give a simple example. I know when I went to my first university championships with the team, I remember I went as an assistant coach, and I remember saying to the head coach at the time, I think we were maybe on day 3 of the tournament, and so many of the players were just strapped up. I called them the mummies because they all looked like mummies. They all had the white tape, around their legs and their knees and their and all different body parts, shoulders, arms, etc. And I said to the coach at the time, why does this team look like mummies? They've arrived here unconditioned, and that's something we need to change. We can't go to a tournament and the players aren't conditioned. And so, fast forward a few years later, and now we have a proper program in place, and we've cultivated this culture of high performance, so the players understand, hey, there's a bigger picture. These are the goals we're working towards, and in order to do that, we have to perform consistently at a high level, and it means that we have to attend our gym sessions, even if they are at 7 o'clock in the morning, or we have to do the extra if we can't get there. We have to show up for the testing, and Jody will attest to the fact that it was a very slow process initially to get players to buy in. So even though myself as the head of the program and the coaches were fully on board, it's then having the players buy into what it is you're trying to sell with a proper high performance program, and having them see the benefit. And a year after the first year, we went to USA. We made it through that USA without any major injuries. The players were better conditioned, still not at the point where we wanted them to be, but they started saying, hey, maybe there's some sense that this Jody character is speaking to us. Maybe there's some method to his madness in trying to get us well prepared. And so setting those long-term goals for the club in terms of where we wanted to be, we wanted to play hockey at the top level in our province, which we're now doing with our ladies team. We wanted to have progress to the A section at USA, which hopefully is happening this year. We finished second last year. And so all of these, the performance then comes from the basis of this high performance culture that we've built. But just touching on some of the things that you mentioned, Keenan, and some of the things that you mentioned earlier, Jody, having the communication between the leadership of the program, the coaches involved, the players, and then the experts that we bring in, the sports scientists, the biokineticists, the physiotherapist, the team doctor, all of those different elements, I think is so important. And particularly for me, I think if I can just look at what made Jody, your program with us so successful, and Wayne's program with the National Ladies, was the fact that the two of you as individuals were very consistent. You were always collecting your data, you were always following up, you were always giving feedback. But at the very heart of it, or at the very foundation of it, both of you built relationships with the players. So there was that trust that Keenan was talking about earlier. So the players trusted that when you said, if you do this for the next few weeks, then that will happen, they believed you, because the results would show that. And so the building of that trust relationship as the foundation is super, super important. I think that also what's important to know is that it is something that takes time to cultivate. It's not something that happens overnight. I think, Keenan, maybe even some of the things that you put in place and some of the ideas that you put in place when you were part of the program with us, some of those things are only coming to fruition now after you've already moved on. But it is a process, and so when you sign up to be involved with anything to do with HP in whatever capacity, it's something that's more long term, and you have to have the patience and the discipline to see it through. And I think those elements are quite important. I think that's what I want to share for this evening. I think we'll answer questions as they come up.
In my situation, I'm really passionate about sports, and so I finished my matric, and I wasn't even sure if should I go to university or not, but I did not. So I ended up coaching sports at the world proper school. Then that helped me because that's when I got more exposure. But at the same time, I was I want to be more involved in SNC program.
Okay.
Then after that, what happened was I'm still in a coaching contract where I'm working currently in one of the schools, but I'm studying sports science, which I'm trying all my best to shift or to get under SNC program, or get into a school that has SNC program. I've been trying, but it doesn't work. So what could be your advice there?
Okay, sure. I don't mind shooting this one. So number one, for me, the most important thing is that you just start operating as if you already have it. Because the longer you wait for administrative people to tell you when to start, it's going to delay so much of your progress and your failures that you need to make in order to become a better SNC. So if you already have the passion and you have the understanding of what to do, but like 100%, you can start incorporating S&C drills within your session, because it will help you understand your athletes also way better as a coach, because you understand the game also more now. Many S&Cs, they first have to like understand the movement aspect behind it first, but you already understand it. So if you add the S&C components, so like, okay, they play a lot of the time under fatigue in the 40th minute, for example. So now I know, okay, according to research, I need to be doing a lot of tempo runs or suicides or these type of things, just hypothetical now. So my advice to you is that start. Don't wait for anyone to tell you when to start, and work with like a network of people. Ask them questions, ask so many things that just gonna move you further into where you need to be in the future. I hope that answers, or maybe anyone else has a better answer for me that's in this chat.
Thanks a lot, man.
Sure, man. Anytime. Coach Lynn.
Yeah, I think also just to add on, and to use your example, Jody, just Sean, you need to put yourself out there. Part of Jody's success was he was like, okay, Lynn, I know you work with the national team. Can I come with to your training sessions? Can I see what they do? And he was just so hungry to learn and to make himself available to be in spaces, to the point where he did warm-ups for the national team as an honest student, I think, Jody. Warming up a national sports team before their practice matches when they camped here in Cape Town, and he was just willing to give up his time to be able to learn and to be put in those spaces to learn. And I think for young people coming into any industry, I think that's very important. And I think on a larger scale, if you are involved in an organization and you're planning, I think succession planning is so important. So once Jody was past the honors phase, he then took on, I see Bianca's on the call. Bianca was one of his junior students that he mentored through the program. And we're fortunate working in a university environment where we do have access to a lot of students who are keen to learn and who are keen to be involved. And so building up the students that are coming through and giving them exposure and experience to your high performance environment, I also think is important.
100%. 100%.
So I think I want to focus my question on Keenan. He spoke a lot about how a multidisciplinary team should ideally work. But what I've found with the different systems that I worked in is that if you speak to people who work in that system, they'll often agree with your concepts, even if they haven't thought about it, because it sounds like a lot of what you're saying just makes logical sense. But a lot of people approach their work kind of selfishly, and maybe not necessarily incorrectly so, because everybody has a life outside of work. But I guess my question is, how do you get an environment where you incentivize the correct conduct, so that people are able to execute correctly, even if they're trying to be selfish? Yeah.
It's a good question. Kenan, you have 1 minute.
Thanks for that, Michael. Okay, so what's difficult is obviously everybody thinks they're an expert, right? And an expert thinks his approach is the best, right? So again, like I said, it's through strategic governance. That's the most important thing. It comes from leadership, your leadership roles. If the leader doesn't how can I say, is clear on their vision for the organization and not holding people accountable to that vision, then that they automatically become the wrong fit for that organization. And you can only do that through consistent upskilling and consistent understanding, of where we want to be and where we want to achieve. Bring people to light, right? Bring people to the light in terms of make them feel not, in terms of when I hold you accountable to your responsibilities, I'm bringing you to the light. So I'm doing it in an environment where everybody's open and we're transparent about it, because I'm reminding you of where we are moving to as an organization. It's not about you as the expert, it's about the organization through that, and we hold them accountable. And if